My name is Dr. Matthew Milliner. I am the Associate Professor of Art History here at Wheaton, and this is a brief instructional video on both why and how to major in art history here. First off, the why. I must study politics and war, that my sons may have liberty to study mathematics and philosophy, geography, natural history, naval architecture, navigation, commerce, and agriculture, in order to give their children, which is you, a right to study painting, poetry, music, architecture, statuary, tapestry, and porcelain. Adam saw the possibility of studying art history as the destiny of a nation. Or John Ruskin put it this way: hundreds of people can talk for one who can think, but thousands can think for one who can see. To see clearly is poetry, prophecy, and religion all in one. That's why this great 19th century evangelical art historian spent so much time looking at paintings, looking at buildings, looking at statuary, because it was teaching him how to see, and it can do the same thing today. Or, more recently, an art historian named Robin Jensen put it this way: art serves as a highly sophisticated, literate, and even eloquent mode of theological expression. She claims that art history is one of the ways that we can study about God, and it teaches something about God that we can't get in any other way. Or let's let the philosophers weigh in. The great 19th century German philosopher Hegel said, "In works of art, the nations have deposited their richest inner intuitions and ideas, and art is often the key, and in many nations the sole key, to understanding their philosophy and religion." Do you want to understand and learn to love another culture, even your own culture? I don't think it's possible without understanding that culture's art and architecture. To be an art history major doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be a curator or an art history professor. You might work in a museum, but you might not. Maybe you want to major in business econ. Wonderful. But Mark Cuban, who knows a good bit about finance, says please don't major just in finance.
I personally think there's going to be a greater demand in 10 years for liberal arts majors than there were for programming majors, and maybe even engineering, because when the data is all being spit out for you, options are being spit out for you, you need a different perspective in order to have a different view of the data.
How do you get this new art historical perspective, you might ask? Well, this is the way that art history plays into the liberal arts solar system here. Let's break it down bit by bit. Of course, at the middle is Christ, because the Christ at the core curriculum always keeps him at the center in whatever discipline you find yourself here at Wheaton. We assume you're on board with the Christian faith here and that you want to go deeper. And so we throw you into your first year seminar where you pick a question that you investigate with 17 other students and a professor in a small seminar. And you're, of course, taking the Old Testament and New Testament credits at the same time, because the scriptures are the primary way that we know about Christ. Then you begin to slowly draw in the different tags, there are 10 of them altogether, into the solar system. The planets begin to align. Scientific perspectives is floating out there, literary explorations, the courses that you begin to take in different departments. But in regard to art history, the first course that you will take, the History of Art and Architecture 1, which goes from Paleolithic, that is cave paintings, all the way through the year 1700, actually fulfills both the global perspectives and the historical perspectives tag. That is offered every fall. From the year 1700 to the present is the course History of Art and Architecture 2, and that fulfills the visual and performing arts and the diversity in the United States tags. And while you're taking that, you will be taking other courses as well. You'll see that social inquiry, for example, and other planets are beginning to emerge, and you might be taking your Christian thought class at the same time. In order to go more in depth, the next year you take Medieval and Byzantine art, which is a 4-hour course that goes from early Christian art all the way through the Middle Ages, and then Renaissance and Reformation art, which is offered in the spring, which covers, of course, the great Renaissance art and the way that it interacts with the Reformation. Those are another 2 courses that are 8 hours altogether, and you put all 4 of those, combine them, you have 16 hours of serious art history credit. You might ask, what happens in those courses? Well, first off, you're not just studying art on slides or in a textbook, you're going to the Art Institute of Chicago, a short train ride away, and seeing examples of the things you're studying in person. An extraordinary museum, you get a free membership to it as a part of your Wheaton education. And then you're reading primary sources. For History of Art and Architecture 1, to study the art of India, we will read the Bhagavad Gita, for example, and engage with that great religious text as Christians. For History of Art and Architecture 2, you'd be reading, for example, the Letters of Vincent van Gogh for Renaissance and Reformation, Martin Luther for medieval and Byzantine art, the great mystics like Julian of Norwich. Well, you put all that together and you begin to see that the art history curriculum at Wheaton is almost a great books curriculum within the wider college itself. That's not enough. You also have to visit buildings. For example, in the medieval and Byzantine class, you might go to the full-scale replica of Sainte-Chapelle in Paris that we have right here in Chicago. For the Renaissance class, you'd go to the Our Lady of Sorrows glorious Renaissance-style coffered ceiling. For our History of Art and Architecture 1, you might go and explore the Hindu temple and get a tour of it as a Christian, but to understand that other religion on its own architectural terms. And then for History of Art and Architecture 2, that's the best of all, because Frank Lloyd Wright prophesied that one day Chicago would be the most beautiful modern architectural city in the world, and I think he was right about that. Frank Lloyd Wright had a lot to do with making it that beautiful, and this is the greatest place to visit all of his works, and you will be visiting those as your different Chicagoland projects, we call them, in each of these different courses. And in each of these courses, you'll be choosing a particular project that you want to focus on as an art historian, information that you'll be unfurling to the entire class. Still, that's not enough for a major. We would have to add a philosophy of art class that fulfills the philosophy tag, where you interact with the philosophy department thinking about what art is. We would have to add a senior capstone where you reflect upon your entire art history and wider undergraduate career, your senior or junior years. However, you could also add a classical archaeology component. We have an archaeology department that is world-class across Blanchard Lawn. You can handle Middle Eastern artifacts. You can interact with those great professors. That's called the regular art history major, where you interact with that important department. But that too wouldn't be enough for an entire major. How are we going to do it? Well, the registrar has equipped us with a magic wand that we can use to turn anything in other departments into art history credit. It's a unique capacity that we have in the art history major here. That becomes what we call alternate hours. You and I discuss together what is going to apply to your art history major. For example, a Dante class would be a great way to make you a better medieval art historian, or a Reformation theology class would make you a better Renaissance art historian. Together we pick those 10 or even up to 16 hours in the alternate major that magically becomes art history credit. But the best part is we're not stealing those credits from other departments. The credits still belong to those departments, and that means that while double dipping is a horrible thing to do at a party, it's the best way to do a double major at Wheaton, because those credits apply to your art history major, but they can also still qualify to help you major in something else. And that's why we have so many pre-med art history double majors. You see the scientific perspectives tag is ballooned up there, the size of Jupiter. We have English and art history double major. That's why literary explorations is ballooned up there. Or philosophy art history double majors, of which there are many, such that we had to create a separate track for it. Or anthropology and art history double majors. You get the idea. Those 16 supplementary hours gives you a lot of flexibility in double majoring at Wheaton. Or you could take that 16 hours of flexibility and choose to apply an internship or your study abroad experience in Wheaton College's Orvieto program that many of us do, or in Arts in London that Wheaton offers. There's different ways to make those 16 hours work for you. How do you make sense of all this? Just Google Art History Wheaton and this page will come up, and there you can download the PDFs. This is the regular art history major with 10 supplementary courses and all the ones that we just mentioned that you have to take. And this is the alternate art history major, which has more flexibility. This is more popular. There's 16 supporting courses that we choose from other departments, along with the top, all the major fillet courses of art history that you get to take. And to conclude, you might ask, why did we choose this image in particular to illustrate the Christ at the Core curriculum and the art history major? Well, there at the left you have what we might call a philosophy major. There's St. Catherine of Alexandria, who vanquished the pagan emperor's best logicians in debate. There at the bottom you have St. Cecilia, who's praising Christ in her own way, the patron saint of music. And there at the right is St. Lucy, who is giving her eyes to Christ in that jar. That is what it means to major in art history at Wheaton. To specialize in visual intelligence and ocular sensation, and using that as a way to activate the wider liberal arts environment here. It is, of course, the San Zaccaria altarpiece from Venice in 1505. But this isn't to suggest that it's all about getting over to Europe and experiencing art history there. No, I like to think of our continuing the great Christ-centered liberal arts tradition here in Illinois. What they were doing in ancient Alexandria as they pursued the liberal arts as Christians, we continue it here. What they were doing at the foundation of the universities of Cambridge, Paris, and Oxford in the Middle Ages, we do it here as well. Christ-centered liberal arts. It was no different at Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. We keep that tradition alive, keeping him at the center of our pursuit of knowledge. In Illinois, with a unique Midwestern inflection, not just investigating that culture over there, but the 10,000-year-old Native American tradition in the Midwest, to say nothing of the African American tradition that we celebrate here as a historic abolitionist school. There are so many new cultures that are coming into the purview of art history. Are we afraid of them here? No. We participate in them, we celebrate them, because we have the warrant for pursuing other cultures and their beauty. That is the gift of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost that brings all nations into the kingdom. This Pentecostal art history is the kind of thing we'll be pursuing here, and I look forward to meeting you and hopefully seeing you in class. Thank you.